Welcome to Sightseeing Japan, the podcast where we explore the land of cuisine. I'm Paul Bresson.
And I'm Jason Nealing. And today we're talking about our second week of our very recent trip to Japan. And it's going to be great.
It was great.
Oh, Paul, I didn't mention, I already started pulling all the videos off of my phone to put together a little movie of our trip. It's been really fun stringing them together and just like watching it. Yeah, I'm thinking like once I have it all strung together, we can kind of talk over it and put it on the Patreon probably.
Yeah, that was fun to do last time. Let's do that again.
Yeah. I think this one, I really focused on taking videos this trip though.
Yeah, this one's going to be, 30 minutes or more maybe?
I think it looks like it might be up to like 45.
Okay, nice.
Well, it depends. I really got to edit it. I can probably cut it down a bit, but I don't know how, I don't really know if I want to, because like I also want to use this to look back on the trip and like I don't want to miss a moment. I think it's all pretty good stuff.
Leave all the good stuff in. If it's 45 minutes, that's fine.
Okay. Thanks for giving me permission.
Yeah. I know I'm going to enjoy it.
Me too.
Especially 5 years from now, looking back. Yeah. That'll be fun.
This will be a treasure for the rest of our lives. We can look back and reminisce. I feel like videos, I don't know, it's just so much, it feels so much more real than looking at a slideshow, you know?
It can, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also forgot to mention when we did the last episode that one of our listeners reached out when we were on our trip and said something to the effect of, please go into extreme detail about everything you did on your trip. So I'm just going to assume that person represents all of our listeners, and I'm going to take that as permission to talk on and on and on about whatever comes to mind about our trip.
Agreed. And they probably realized that after listening to last episode.
I don't think it was like unreasonably long compared to our last trip recaps.
No.
Paul's grinning like he has a secret joke, like I went off on a bunch of tangents that were totally unnecessary. Is that what's happening over there?
No, you did the thing again where you talked about all your meals, but that's okay. I think people like that.
Honestly, the food was one of my favorite things about this trip, and one of the things that I miss the most when I'm not in Japan. I ate so much incredible food in Japan, Paul. I mean, even with the walking more than 10 miles every single day, I still gained a couple pounds. Did you weigh yourself when you got back?
I forgot, but I'm sure I didn't lose any weight.
I was full like the entire time just because I was constantly seeing things that I wanted to eat.
Yep.
And I never denied myself because
most days I was eating a full restaurant meal for lunch and dinner, plus snacks. Yeah.
Me too. And then I would get famichiki on the way back to the hotel after dinner.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. By the way, I think I mentioned that I don't know how many people know exactly what a famichiki is, so let me clarify. If you go to a Family Mart, that's one of the big convenience store chains, walk into Family Mart, go up to the front counter, and there's a case of like hot food there. Tell the cashier that you want a famichiki, and you will receive a succulent, tender little morsel of fried chicken that's just, it's better than, I don't even know where you can get fried chicken that good in the U.S. It's really greasy in the best possible way.
Yeah. Famichiki's become really popular. I think a lot of people probably have heard of it.
Yeah.
But no one seems to regret trying it.
It's good stuff.
I've yet to see a person, even online, say they don't like it, which is crazy.
I would also like to recommend, though, there are other types of chicken in that case at the front counter. Like they have other varieties of famichiki. There's a soy sauce one, there's a spicy one, and I tried those. They're worth a try, I'll say that. I feel like the other varieties maybe sit there a bit longer because I think the original famichiki is more popular, so it's more likely to be crispy and fresh tasting. The other ones might dry out a little bit, but still tasty. I don't know. Just give them a try, you know?
You're the worst at selling stuff sometimes, man.
I just got to be honest. I'm not just going to be like, buy all this stuff. I got to tell my true experience, you know?
Yeah, but you're not saying, oh, don't get them because they're dried and they sit there. You're like, no, you should try these. But they might be dried and there for 5 hours. But you should try it.
Be, but that doesn't mean they're bad. They're just not quite as good as the legendary famichiki, the original.
Sure. You even had to try Nana Chiki this time, didn't you?
I did. Nanachiki is Family Mart's fried chicken.
No. You
What
said Family Mart.
Did I just say Family Mart?
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain's not connected to my mouth right. 7-Eleven.
That's the Nana.
Yeah, Nana means 7.
Yeah.
7
And that wasn't too bad, right?
It wasn't bad at all. No, it was pretty good. I still haven't tried Lawson's chicken. I don't know. Just go out and try all of the convenience store chickens. I know it sounds weird, like why would a convenience store have good chicken? But I swear they're good. They're worth it.
So I have one follow-up question from last episode before we get into it this time, too.
For me?
Yeah, you ended up staying a couple days in Osaka.
Yes.
And in the past, we've had a little bit of a discussion where Paul really likes Osaka, and Jason's like, it's okay, but it's not special. After spending a little bit more time there, do you enjoy yourself? Has your opinion changed at all?
I did enjoy myself. I don't think my opinion has really changed, though, to be honest. Because one of my biggest issues with Osaka is just how crowded it is. And like I said, I had to wait in a long line at that aquarium.
But does Tokyo get those same minuses from you then? Are you like not a big Tokyo guy? Or is that just different?
Well, Tokyo's bigger, and I feel like there are more places you can go. Like the crowds have more room to spread out just because of the size of Tokyo and all the different things there are to see.
I mean, it depends where you are. The big districts of Tokyo are quite crowded.
True. I don't know. It's just like the aquarium, like I said, I preferred the one in Okinawa.
Yeah, but you went to like the best aquarium in the world, and then you went to like the third best aquarium in the world, and you were like, it's not quite as good.
Wait a minute. Oh, I totally forgot. I had a note about the Osaka Aquarium. Can I just throw that in here now?
Please.
Because I found some interesting information about it. Okay, did you realize that when Osaka Aquarium Kaiyukan was built, it was the largest public aquarium in the world? Maybe you knew that.
I've probably read that at some point.
Okay, but have you heard this? The amount of acrylic glass used to build the tank in the Osaka Aquarium was 1.5 times the amount of acrylic that was produced by the entire world in 1 year at that time.
What?
Yes.
How's that even possible?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
They bought a whole lot of acrylic glass.
Wow.
1.5 times the annual world production at the time. That's crazy.
That's nuts.
I could not believe that when I read it.
Must be huge in there. Wow.
Yeah, man. Okay. Oh, wait. So you asked how I feel about Osaka. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not trying to say you hate Osaka or anything.
I don't hate Osaka.
You just seem way less excited about it than you do about like Tokyo or Kyoto or almost anywhere else.
I don't know. The places I went were cool. Like I did really enjoy my time there this time, maybe even more than the times I had been there before. But I think part of it was just that it was like really nice and relaxing and comfortable compared to like the strenuous hike I did, you know?
We're almost never in Japan and we don't have 5 things to do in a day. So it's a little different to like just be in Osaka and have all day.
Yeah, and just get to decide like that day what I was going to do. I also really did enjoy Naniwa Kuishimbo Yokocho. And we kind of went to some other places like that where you get that old-timey vibe a little bit.
Yeah.
I just like that stuff in general, you know? The old-timey stuff. That's what I'm about.
Yeah, I mean, but don't you like the vibes in Osaka? You know, a little more excitement. People are a little more lively.
I liked the vibes on the Kumano Kodo. Little rural villages,
all right.
Mountain views, no sounds but the crickets and the birds. That's my vibe.
And then you went straight from that to downtown Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I don't know. Maybe, I still haven't been to Universal Studios. There's still more to experience in Osaka that I haven't done. And maybe it's just taken me time to piece that all together in my brain and like come up with kind of a more complete impression of what Osaka's about, you know?
Yeah, you've probably done 2 or 3 days worth of like cool stuff in Osaka now over all your trips.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell anybody not to go to Osaka. It's a cool place.
Right, especially if you're heading to Kyoto anyways.
Right. Well, anyway, we've been kind of taking this in a random direction for the last 10 minutes.
It's not that random. We're literally talking about the last episode.
True.
But let's move on to day 8, right?
Day 8. This was a Sunday in Nagoya. And I was really excited about this first thing that we had planned for that day. Paul, should we talk about Nagoya coffee culture?
Yeah, we should.
So at some point, apparently around the early 1970s, these coffee shops started popping up in Nagoya. And, they would serve coffee, but you got to give some sort of little snack along with the coffee. So these cafes would start serving like a slice of toast or something along with their coffee as just a free little perk to keep people coming back. And then the coffee shops started competing with each other, and these little offerings got more and more elaborate, and it just evolved over time into this whole kind of breakfast coffee shop culture in Nagoya, which is really cool and unique and a piece of the local culture that I was really excited to experience. So that was our plan for this morning. We went to Coffee House Kako, which is kind of the one that I had heard about the most researching that stuff. They opened in 1972. I think they claim to be the first coffee shop in Nagoya, don't they?
That sounds familiar.
Let me see it.
I was also confused about the dates because they had a 50-year anniversary thing, but then they had something else that was like since 19 whatever, and I was like, that's not the same date. But I think there are multiple locations.
There
So
are.
like the company's been around X long, and each location, I think this location had been there since 1972. But I'm not sure about the whole
Okay.
company.
Yeah, maybe the whole thing, that whole story about the coffee shops, maybe that happened earlier. I never really saw like a solid time period for that stuff,
Well, I think the coffee shops were around, and then at some point they started competing with more elaborate snacks to try to win business.
Okay. Well, so this coffee shop was not far from our hotel, which was itself not far from Nagoya Station.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way here, the one that we ended up going to is the one that I had marked on my map. But on the way there, we passed another place that said Coffee House Kako, right? And there was a line outside of that. So we're like, well, let's not wait in line there. Let's go to this other one. But there was also a line there. This is a popular thing.
This one seemed cooler and older, though.
Yeah, it had a really cool vibe. It's got kind of stained glass in the windows. It's a
Yeah.
pretty small place. There's like a little bar and then a couple small tables. Can't fit a lot of people in there. And how long would you say we waited? It was probably like 20 minutes or something at least, right?
Yeah, 20 to 25.
But I would say it was totally worth it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That was fine.
So this is common when you're standing outside some restaurant waiting. They hand you a menu and you can take a look at their offerings. And basically their main thing, besides the coffee, you have like choices of kind of regular coffee or special coffee. And then they have these little sets where it's like they take a really big chunk, like a thick slice of toast. They cut it into 4 pieces, and then each piece has a different little topping on there. You got like fruit jams with whipped cream. There's a cream cheese one. I don't know. You got different options. And then they have the drinks on the back of the menu. It's more than just coffee. If you don't like coffee, you can also get...
Orange juice, which is what I got because I don't like coffee.
Paul doesn't like coffee. You can get a wiener coffee. I'm really curious what exactly that is. They have different types of tea. They got milk tea. You can get chai. You can get hot chocolate, strawberry milk, an orange latte, a hot orange latte. I saw somebody get that. That looked really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of options. And we got in there. We sat at the bar. They took our order. Food came out. I got the special coffee. It was from Egypt, was it?
Ethiopia, right?
Special coffee. Ethiopia. It was Ethiopia. So what did you think of the fruit jams, Paul?
Oh, they were so good. The flavor was incredible. I don't even know what they all were, but one of them was like green and like just popped with like a citrus flavor, but was so good.
Yeah, I feel like they must have all been like made with local ingredients and stuff. Like they seemed very fresh and yeah, just really, really good. Like they're
And
not
just stuff
getting
I
this stuff out of
hadn't
jars.
had before.
Yeah, there was a caramel one. I don't remember. They told us when they set it down in front of us what each of them was, but
Right, I
they were
forgot by now,
fantastic.
but they were good.
And you could tell the whipped cream. Like it's not like they're just squirting out of a can. They're like taking heavy cream and whipping it right before they serve it to you, you know? And that's what I'm talking about. Going back to the coffee shop I talked about in Osaka the last episode,
Yeah.
is like they just don't take shortcuts, you know? Like everything's made fresh right in front of you. That's why I was excited about it. Like I said, I know it seems like a weird thing to get excited about, just this little basic breakfast at a coffee shop, but it's like the quality is so high, but it's still really inexpensive.
Yeah, that is cool. So yeah, Nagoya coffee culture, awesome.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Verdict, awesome.
I had wanted to do something like that, like try different coffee shops every morning. We didn't quite have time to make that happen, but I was really glad that we at least got one day to do that. And I think anyone visiting Nagoya should do the same.
Yes.
So then we started walking down the street to head over to Nagoya Castle and saw a random Lamborghini.
It was nice.
I feel like, I don't know, I always end up seeing a lot of really nice cars in Japan for some reason.
Yeah, same.
It's fun seeing all the little K cars and stuff too, but sometimes you're just like, man, whoa.
Maybe
really
because
nice car.
less people drive, there's a higher percentage of supercars out there.
Could be. So Nagoya Castle. What was your first impression when you saw that main keep, Paul?
I mean, it's beautiful. It's a nice keep.
It is. It's a really impressive one. It's not one of the originals, right?
Right.
This is a reconstruction, but it's a beautiful reconstruction. It's faintly reminiscent of Osaka Castle because it's got the gold fish on the top. And
even just the look of the roofs, you know, and the green roof.
Right, the green.
And the shape of them and the size of it.
And the white walls.
I think that's an apt comparison.
Yeah.
But they're both gorgeous. I mean, Osaka Castle is gorgeous.
Yeah. Seeing it through the trees as you approach, I thought that was a really nice view right there.
Yep.
Again, I mentioned last episode how we kept seeing bonsai trees. As you're walking down the path to kind of get right in front of the main keep, bunch of bonsai displays. That was really cool.
It was. They had a couple really cool ones too.
Mm-hmm. So Nagoya Castle. Oh, that's one. That was a reconstruction that they're actually planning to tear down soon, right?
Yes.
Because they want to rebuild it using all the traditional methods and materials.
Yep. And it's not safe right now. It's not earthquake safe, so they won't let anyone inside.
Yeah. So we didn't get into the keep. However, they have already rebuilt the palace with those traditional techniques and materials, and you can go in there, and it was breathtaking. Is that the word?
And they had blueprints still from the original castle, so they built it as faithfully as possible to exactly how it looked when they were living in it.
That's pretty cool. And like how new it looked. Like, I mean, a very traditional style, but also extremely new materials. It's really cool to think that, like,
this is how it looked when it was new.
Hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. And the art, too. They had artists come in and they recreated all the drawings on the doors and the walls and the ceilings.
I think about that a lot when we visit these old places. It's like, okay, we know what it looks like now after hundreds of years, but what did it look like when it was brand new? And we got to experience that. I thought that was pretty cool.
I mean, it was almost cooler in some ways than going to an old place where you can barely like see the picture on the wall. There's something really cool about the history of like, this is the place, but seeing somewhere that made you feel like you actually went back in time and this is what it was like was a totally different experience.
Yeah. So I took a lot of pictures and videos of the inside of this palace.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. How could you not?
Right. Every few steps, you're just seeing this new amazing like mural. Tons of different like paintings on screens. There are these tigers and bamboo and just massive amounts of gold leaf all over the place.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like this is actually way cooler than if we just went into another reconstructed castle keep that had like a set of armor and a couple guns on display inside.
Totally. Yeah, this is really amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Like it's almost too much. Like you get overwhelmed with the amount of luxury and opulence surrounding you.
It's a true palace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very worth a visit. Don't miss it.
Oh, I had a couple little notes here about the castle, too. So the castle itself was built by the Owari domain in 1612. Nagoya was a very important castle town in the Edo period. That's why it has this awesome castle.
Yeah. So on the castle ground, there's also a garden. It's kind of a unique one. The shrunken scenery I thought was really prevalent. There were all these like 10-foot tall mounds that were like mountains. And then there was like a deep river running through the middle that was dry when we were there. But I thought that stood out to me compared to other gardens I've seen. It was very prevalent with that landscaping.
Yeah, I remember this being an interesting garden. Not in the top gardens we saw all trip, I would say.
Same, yeah.
But it was nice. They have a tea house back there.
Yep.
Some walking stones and stuff.
I think it's the plants. The plants weren't as impressive as some places.
Yeah.
But if you're at the castle, like, take a walk through it.
It feels a little less like what you might think of as like the quintessential Japanese garden. Like it's
a little different.
It's a different type of garden.
Yeah.
Okay, so we left the castle. We headed over to the Tokugawa Art Museum, which I think we were both pretty excited about because we're kind of into history and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, the Tokugawa family ruled the country during the Edo period, one of the most influential families in Japanese history. What did you think of the museum, Paul?
I was really impressed with the number of artifacts they had. Like cool stuff directly tied to some of the most famous people in Japan.
Yeah, that was really cool. Didn't we? We saw a sword.
That was like Toyotomi Hideyoshi's or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Which is funny because
that's pretty cool.
He wasn't a Tokugawa, but
right.
Closely connected to them. Yeah, so the Owari that ruled Nagoya from that castle, they were like part of the Tokugawa family. So really important people, and that's kind of why they have this museum here. But yeah, the armor, the swords, and a lot of times I feel like people might be surprised when they get to Japan and see a lot of the swords that you see in museums. They're just the blades. They don't have any dressings on them. They don't have the scabbard or the hilt a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But this one actually had these like really dressed up swords, all wrapped up and in their scabbards and everything. Really good looking swords. Also guns. Man, this gun was really funny. It's got the Tokugawa family crest all over it in gold.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of like the Louis Vuitton logo, how it's just like stamped all over their products, you know?
It does like, have that look.
This gun almost looks more like a fashion statement than a weapon of war, you know?
I mean, it might have been.
Right.
If it ended up in this museum, it might have been a personal gun to a Tokugawa guy.
Right. The person that owned this isn't like the guy on the front lines.
Yeah.
Probably never fired it in battle, you know? But it's cool looking. It's interesting to see all of the tea paraphernalia.
Yeah, with some of their most important possessions. So a lot of that stuff survived.
Mm-hmm. Kimono, lots of like painted scrolls. I was surprised to see that basically like half of the museum was dedicated to art about the tale of Genji.
Yeah.
This is a really famous piece of literature from the Heian period, right?
Yeah, I think
that's right. Around 1,000 years ago, written by a woman in hiragana.
Yep.
And just tons of art, like all about the characters in this book. It was extremely influential and still very famous.
Yeah, they had so much stuff. It was incredible.
Had some no masks in the museum.
Yeah.
Had some nice ikebana. That was fun to see.
There was a huge garden at this museum that we went to afterwards.
Yes, that was pretty nice. Big pond in the middle, very nice landscaping around the edges of it. There's also a restaurant there.
Yeah. They were having a wedding there, I think, when we walked past.
Private event.
Yeah, it was a nice garden.
Yeah, it was cool. If you're interested in Japanese history, I highly recommend museum. Lots of really cool artifacts there.
Yep.
Especially just because of the people that they're connected to. Like it's
the actual no masks from like a few hundred years ago were really cool.
Yeah, we saw some more of those too. I have some more videos. That was fun because I wanted to test that idea that we talked about in our masks episode where depending on the angle that the mask is tilted at, the expression on it looks completely different. So I took a video of one of these no masks where you go from like high up above it to down below it. And it really is crazy how much it changes. Like in one position, it looks sad. And on the other one, it looks happy. It's very odd.
Yep.
So after the art museum, we wanted to find a place for lunch. And Paul had this vegan spot in mind. So I kind of joined him going in that general direction. And then we split up and I found a Kako curry house nearby. And I'd been aware of this place for a long time. And I'm pretty sure there was one in LA not far from where we lived. And maybe that's why I never went there in Japan until now, is that it didn't feel like Japanese enough because I knew there was that one in the US.
Yeah.
But I finally went there and I was really impressed, actually. The curry is very solid. When you see these big chains, it's like, I want like little mom and pop curry place. But Coco's is good stuff.
Yeah, they're legit.
Yeah. And then what happened with you, Paul?
Well, I ended up joining you because I made it to the vegan restaurant and they were fully booked for the lunch for some special event or something.
So I remember there was another spot in this trip where we had this vegan place picked out and it just ended up not opening for whatever reason. Do you feel like that happens a lot with vegan places? Like, do you feel like you have a better chance of just not being able to get in for whatever reason?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think a lot of the vegan places are small. They might be run by only a person or two. So if they take any days off, it's going to be closed. Or they run out of food for the day and they sold everything. They might close early. Or they're doing a special event or something. But I feel like you might run into it occasionally too when you're trying to go to those really specialty places that are small.
Well, you also said that a lot of those vegan places you went to, you were kind of the only person in there, right? Like they're aiming squarely at vegan people, and there aren't a lot of vegan people in Japan. Like mostly they're aiming at tourists. So I feel like they might just generally not be as busy and might not have as much motivation to stay open if they don't feel like it.
Yeah. The ones that seem to be busier are the ones that seem to take more of a health route. Like they're really pushing like this is health food rather than like this is vegan food. The vegan specific ones seem to me to have like more tourists there.
Are the menus always like 100% in English too? You don't even see like any Japanese? Like I've gotten the impression from, following you into vegan places in Japan that a lot of them, like no Japanese people are going there. It's 100% vegan tourists that go to some of these places.
Some are, some aren't.
Okay. Well, after lunch, we headed down to a place that I was very excited about, the SCMAGLEV and Railway Park. This is a little bit out of the city. I mean, it's in the city, but it takes like an hour to get there from kind of the main downtown area with all the other touristy stuff.
So this is a train museum that's specifically dedicated to maglev technology, but has a lot of Shinkansen stuff as well.
There was a little bit less maglev stuff than I was hoping. I mean, there's enough. I don't really know what else I could have expected, but
Well, I think it's hard because the maglev's not running any passenger service yet, so there's only so much to show.
I was hoping for a little bit more depth on the technology, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, they do have a dedicated room where they even have some interactive things that you can play with where it talks about like the different types of magnets. By the way, I should define maglev. This is talking about magnetic levitation trains. They're making these new train lines where the train it's just hovering. It's not even touching anything. And it's incredible. They have one of these in, like, right when you get into the museum, there's a room with these 3 trains, like life-size actual trains that you can take a look at. And one of them is the maglev kind of prototype. And it looks really cool. It's almost got like a duck bill. Like the Shinkansen is pointy, but the maglev is even pointier. Because it's just going at such a high speed. It needs to be like as aerodynamic as possible.
Yeah.
And it makes it look weird.
Yeah.
It was exciting to see that.
This is a really cool museum, though. Right away, you enter like this dimmed room that's got cool atmosphere. You're like, oh man, there's cool stuff here.
Weren't they playing like some really kind of triumphant sounding music too?
Yeah.
I think I have a clip of that I'll put behind this.
I enjoyed seeing all the different series of Shinkansen. Like, they had the Series 0 there, like the first ones they used, and then you could see the newer ones and the newer ones.
Yeah, it was really interesting. There's a huge room with all these different generations of trains, and a lot of them you can actually get inside and look around. And yeah, it's interesting to see how the technology developed. And they had all these different types of trains for different purposes, too. Dr. Yellow was interesting to see.
Yep.
It's like a train that's made specifically to diagnose problems with the track or other things.
Yep.
I had a little shot here I wanted to mention. I took a picture of the little panel that talks about the maglev. It says, the superconducting maglev runs while being levitated by electromagnetic forces created between the coils in the guideways and superconducting magnets on the vehicle. It can run faster than trains due to the absence of friction created, blah, blah, blah. Holds the world high-speed record for railway of 581 kilometers per hour. That's just over 360 miles per hour.
Ooh.
That's crazy.
That's fat. For moving on the ground, nothing on the ground moves that fast. That's crazy.
They have a certificate there for the Guinness World Records. Highest speed attained by a manned superconducting magnetically levitated train. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it was actually in 2003 that they established that record. The train itself was built in 1995. I can't believe that they've had that technology for so long. But it takes a while to like get the infrastructure set up to actually, let them start running trains regularly with that technology.
Yeah. So they also had this room with a massive train diorama that had Tokyo down through Nagoya to Osaka and Nara and Kyoto. And they had the little buildings from each city. And there were so many train tracks.
Yeah, all the different types of trains running. They got the Shinkansen, they got the local trains, all these train lines just curving around each other. You got cherry blossom trees everywhere. Is that Issei Shrine?
It looks like it.
Just like the biggest landmarks from around the country all stuck into this diorama. It's pretty cool.
I sat there for 20 minutes just enjoying it like a kid.
It is impressive. They have a lot of things for kids too. They can try a train driving simulator. That looks fun. They actually have like the front of a train chopped off and you can sit in the cockpit and got like a big wraparound screen. Oh, we sat in this thing that simulates what it would be like to ride on the maglev, and it shows you like there's a big screen that shows how fast it moves and what it looks like going down a tunnel at 500 kilometers per hour. Crazy.
And then weren't all the window screens? And it would like show how fast the scenery was flying by at those speeds.
Yeah, and you could feel how smooth it was too. Like there's the sound and slight vibration, but it's like just the smoothest train you can imagine.
Yeah, that was cool.
Even at incredibly high speeds. It was really cool. Well, that was a big day. Took us a while to get to day 2.
Yeah.
But day 2, we took a train to Inuyama. This is another castle town just north of Nagoya. And they have this road that they call Showa Alley leading up to Inuyama Castle.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. We got there kind of before most of the things opened, before any other tourists showed up. So we got a chance to walk down the street and just take a look at the old-timey feel, take it all in before the town kind of woke up.
Yeah, it was nice to see it so early.
Yeah. Went to a Matsuri museum. It was pretty cool.
Yep, they had a few of the floats there that they use in the local Matsuri and a little bit of other information. It's fun to see.
Yeah, those floats are always interesting to take a look at. They're really big and elaborate. There's this one just completely covered in paper lanterns.
Yeah.
They had little kind of dioramas there showing how people pull those things through the streets. Started to see references to Momotaro. That was fun. So we just did that episode where we told the story of Momotaro recently.
Yeah.
Got some nice pictures down this street. Like I said, it's a very traditional vibe. These old wooden buildings with the tile roofs, and then you can see the castle down at the end of the street. It's a pretty nice view. There were a couple museums we wanted to go to that ended up being closed that day, right, Paul?
Yeah, that was too bad.
Yeah, there was a Karakuri museum I was excited to see about little like animatronic dolls from the Edo period. That was closed. There was the Cultural History Museum, I believe was also closed, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of just walked down the street, took a look in some of the shops, made our way towards the castle. So let me talk about the castle for a second, or just like the history behind it. So Inuyama was the site of some battles at the end of the Sengoku period, that Warring States period in the 1500s. I think these battles were specifically near the end of the 1500s when things were really coming to a head. This castle was built by the Oda clan in the 1580s and has been standing ever since. It's actually the oldest of the 12 original castles that still remain in Japan.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And after the Tokugawas took over the country, like they tore down a bunch of castles because they didn't want people being able to get too much power in different parts of the country. But they left this castle alone because they gave it to the Naruse clan, who were vassals of the Owari Tokugawa clan, those guys I just talked about when we were talking about the Tokugawa Art Museum. So they were like close, you know, they weren't worried about them, so they let them keep this castle. So, Paul, what did you think of the castle? It's on the top of a hill. We had to kind of climb past these shrines.
Yeah, there
Get
are
up
two
there.
shrines right at the base. The Inari shrine was kind of cool. It had that rock you lift while making your wish. And if the rock is heavy, your wish will be difficult. And if it's light, your wish will be easy.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And the other one had a couple like interesting horse statues. I'm not really sure what was going on there.
How has your progress towards your wish been going?
Well, the rock was pretty heavy, so in tune with that, I haven't made much progress yet.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's all right. Long-term goals. The castle was great. We ended up getting a free tour in English of the castle.
Yeah,
So that was nice. I learned a few things there.
Yeah, we just randomly ran into a tour guide outside who offered to show us around. It was really fun. So what do you think of the keep? Like, I feel like it's generally quite a bit smaller than a lot of the castles we've been to.
Yeah, definitely. It's not super small, but it's in the medium range at best. Inside was kind of cool at the top. Around the top floor, they let you walk on a balcony around the whole thing. So you get views of the river and the city. You could even see the tall buildings all the way back in Nagoya. That was awesome.
It was pretty awesome. And our tour guide took pictures of the two of us standing up there.
Holding our shoes in a bag.
Yeah. Yeah, castles, that's one of the places where you're going to have to take off your shoes if you want to go inside. But yeah, very nice views from the top. Got a lot of pictures of the mountains around.
But yeah, cool castle. Great history. Beautiful castle up on the hill overlooking the river. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, between the castle and the street leading up to the castle, I say Inuyama is a great day trip from Nagoya. Like, we did a bunch of day trips, as I mentioned. This is one of the top ones, I'd say, from Nagoya.
Yeah, if you're in Nagoya, you want to go to Inuyama.
Yeah.
So we went back to that shopping street for some lunch.
Yeah, I got some street food. There's a bunch of street food here, and I kind of love those kinds of places because, like, you can try so many different things without getting too full from one thing.
Yeah.
So I got one of those fish where they skewer an entire fish and they kind of make them curve so they look like they're swimming. That's the idea.
Yeah, and you ate the tail and the head and the eyeballs and everything.
You just eat the entire fish, but it was still like really tender. It wasn't like hard to eat, and the bones are so thin you don't even notice them.
Wow.
It was really good.
That's
really
crazy.
Good. Yeah.
I got my favorite street food, the fried mochi balls.
Nice. Yeah,
Stuffed
those are
with
good.
the sesame paste.
Yeah. Sesame seeds outside too.
Yep. I got an acai bowl, which is kind of like a smoothie bowl, and a churro.
I got a Mont Blanc, which are really popular these days. They're those little like desserts where it looks like it's covered in really thin colored spaghetti.
Yeah, that looked funny.
So after the castle and wandering back to the shopping street a little bit, we headed over to Urakuen, which is a Japanese garden that was built for Oda Urakusai. He was the younger brother of Oda Nobunaga, who was an extremely important figure in Japanese history.
Yes.
This is home to one of the finest tea houses in Japan, Paul. The one that we
National
had
treasure.
We had tea in that tea house. How cool is that?
Yeah, that was cool.
What'd you think of the garden around the tea house?
I'd say not in my top half of gardens.
I thought the tea house itself and the garden, like immediately around it, looked really nice. And I like that they used Inuyama Castle as borrowed scenery. It's kind of peeking above the trees there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We did pay quite a bit to get in here, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
A little expensive. But I'd say it was worth it.
And we paid for the tea, too, but that was nice.
Right.
That was nice.
To have tea in, like, one of the best tea houses in the country.
I think we didn't take tea in that tea house, though. They built, like, another tea house. Like, the old famous one that was moved from hundreds of years ago was a separate building.
It was a completely different building?
I think so.
I was looking at pictures, and it really looked like the one that we went into. I don't know. I feel like there were several tea houses in that garden, and I wasn't really sure which was which.
Yeah. Either way, it was great service, nice tea, good little snack.
Yeah. Okay, so from there, we had kind of two options in mind. We were thinking either we would hike up a mountain right there, east of the garden, or we could walk to Momotaro Shrine. And I was excited about Momotaro Shrine because I got my Momotaro jeans. We just read that story. It's a famous story that I enjoy, and I was just interested to see Momotaro Shrine.
It was the right choice. It was a super cool shrine, but the walk there was mostly nice. It was right along the river, so you got some beautiful views along the river as we went.
We really did. And even on the way, you start to see references to the folktale, like in the railings next to the river. There are little, what do you even call that? It's like metalwork in the railing that shows Momotaro and the animals that joined him.
Yep.
Maybe I should quick recap the story of Momotaro. Basically, it's just this really famous Japanese folktale where this boy, Momotaro, he pops out of a peach. Momo means peach. He's like, it really reminds me of James and the Giant Peach. He's this kid that just pops out of a peach and gets taken in by this old man and woman. And as a teenager, he goes off and recruits a monkey and a pheasant and a dog to go fight the Oni, the demons. And that's the main gist of it, really.
Yep.
So yeah, a very nice, picturesque walk to get over to this shrine. It took a little while, though. 40 minutes?
Yeah, something like that. Less than an hour.
And we get to this shrine, and you start seeing all these statues of all the characters from the stories.
And they're all brightly painted, which is really cool.
Yeah. There's a big torii gate, and on top of the torii gate is a giant metal peach. And then at the bottom, like right under the torii gate, there's a little naked Momotaro popping out of a giant peach. It's pretty great.
It's awesome.
There's the old lady carrying the peach that he came out of. So I finally got to know how big the peach actually was. I remember saying that when we read this story. Like, how big was this peach? It's about the size of her torso, I'd say.
Yeah, it's big. I thought the Oni statues were particularly fun.
Yeah, they are very fun. There's the old man carrying his wood back. They're making mochi from Momotaro. It's like every moment from the folktale is represented by a statue somewhere at this shrine. It's really cool.
Yeah.
You climb up these stairs, and there's like a little main hall where you can pray to Momotaro. And they got more statues up there. We got a picture in one of those little things where, there's a hole in a thing, and you put your face in there and take a picture. And, hey, look, I'm Momotaro. That was fun. And then you can pay like 100 yen to get over to this other area with more statues, and there's... it's fun. If you're into the folktale, definitely check this place out. I got a picture of Paul riding a friendly Oni.
Yeah, it was really cool. The gift shops were kind of cool too.
The gift shops are great. I brought home a bunch of Momotaro stuff. And then we walked back to Inuyama Station, went back to Nagoya. I had dinner at Ichiran. I always make sure to go there at least once when I'm in Japan. That's that ramen place where you can, they have like little individual booth kind of things, and you can order and eat without ever saying a word to anybody. It's pretty solid ramen, in my opinion. I had a lot of better ramen, to be honest. I ate a lot of ramen this trip, but there's just something comforting about like that. It's a consistent flavor. You know what you're going to get there, you know? Next day, we took a train to Hikone. This is about an hour from Nagoya.
Yeah, about that.
And I found my new favorite mascot. The mascot of Hikone City is Hikonyan. He's a little cat that wears a samurai helmet, and he's everywhere. He's extremely popular, apparently.
I can see why.
He's adorable. But yeah, just walking down the street, you'll see him everywhere.
I mean, you're wearing your Hikonyan shirt right now, Jason.
That is true. I found a really cool shirt with Hikonyan on the side.
I got one too. I'm just not wearing it right now.
I was wondering if I was going to see you wearing that, we could have matching Hikonyan
should've.
shirts on. So we started walking over to Hikone Castle. Just a couple details about this castle. This is another original castle, one of the 12 originals. This was built at the beginning of the Edo period and was controlled by the E family. And as we approached, we came across a free museum about the city, and we got to see some walls with the holes for shooting arrows and guns out of.
Mm-hmm.
This one has a double moat, right? Like the complex is pretty impressive. What'd you think of the main keep, Paul?
It's pretty. The roof is kind of cool. It's very small.
Yeah, this is another one. It's about the size of Inuyama's main keep, too.
I'd say slightly smaller even. 3 stories, but it's way up on the hill. It's in this awesome commanding overlook spot. It's a pretty cool castle. And you get to go inside of it, which was nice.
Yep, again, you can get views from the top.
Yeah, the views across the lake. I don't think we mentioned that Hikone is kind of situated right on Lake Biwa, the biggest lake in Japan.
Yeah, this is the one that used to be right on the edge of the lake, right? But then they moved the shoreline further into the lake. So the castle itself was cool, but I think the best part of this experience was the garden.
Oh, the garden was so amazing. Just unbelievable. You were talking about how you felt at peace early in the morning in Wakayama. Like, this is how I felt in this garden. Like, just completely content and peaceful.
Is this the top garden of the trip, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. It had everything. The plants were beautiful, the rocks were beautiful, the water, the lily pads on the water, the bridges, the castle in the background up on the hill. Everything about the garden was just perfect. Top notch.
It was the single best use of borrowed scenery I've ever seen, which makes sense because the garden is actually part of the castle grounds. Like, of course, they're going to accentuate the castle keep.
Yeah.
But just the way that it's framed by everything.
Yeah.
You got these beautiful buildings on the edge of the pond, and then the pond itself, and then islands in the pond, and just the whole line of sight. Like, we found this bench that we sat on, and you're just looking across this pond up at the castle. It's just perfection.
This is 100% in my top 2 gardens I've ever been to.
I have to ask now, what's the other one?
The garden at Shitenoji, which was amazing. But we went there when the cherry blossoms were blooming too. So I got the best possible look at that garden. And that's the only one that competes with this one for me.
I can see that. That makes sense. We should be clear, there are actually 2 gardens right next to each other here. This big garden we're talking about is called Genkyuen. But right next to that, there's a rock garden called Rakurakuen. It's not called Rakurakuen because of the rocks. Raku means enjoy. Something like that. I said that on a sign. So like, enjoy garden.
Yeah.
But that one was actually, we didn't get to see a lot of that because they were filming a period drama in that garden. Like, there's a building in there and they had all the lights and actors and people around telling you don't get too close.
Yeah. Although I don't think that garden was too huge. I feel like we kind of saw most of it. We just
no.
couldn't get all the angles.
That one was very small relative to the one we were in, Genkyuen.
Yeah. So after the garden, we went to Hikone Castle Museum that we got with a combined ticket with seeing the castle. And they had a ton of awesome artifacts here as well. Bunch of suits of armor. Even the one you can see that the Hikonan mascot was made after with the huge horns on the helmet.
They're massive. I don't think I've ever seen anything sticking out of another Japanese helmet that was that tall.
It probably goes up 3 feet.
It looks uncomfortable. Like,
yeah, you wouldn't want to wear that in a fight.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Bunch more swords. Oh, this is where I got the video of the no mask with its changing expression.
Oh, man,
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
crazy.
Yeah, I'll have to put that on Instagram.
Yeah, that's really cool. It was like distraught to mischievous. So this place also had a preserved no stage from hundreds of years ago that they still occasionally do performances on. So that was really cool to see.
It does look very old. So after the castle, we walked down Yume Kyobashi Castle Road, which is, I mean, this whole experience like reminds me a little bit of Inuyama because this also has kind of the traditional road leading up to the castle, the wooden buildings with the tile roofs, same sort of thing.
Yeah, you go to a lot of castles and you're going to have a castle road and a garden and a keep.
Yeah. I think I actually liked the street in Inuyama more though. There was a lot more going on, more street food, and it was just a livelier place. This one has like a big road going down the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of lazy, these little quiet souvenir shops.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so then we headed over to Omihachiman. This is another town on the edge of Lake Biwa, just a bit further west. And this place is famous for its canal area. So we headed over there.
Yeah, the canal was really cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty area. I was excited to see the Kawara Museum, which is about tile roofs.
Yeah, that was really cool. There's so many great examples in there. Plus, they teach you a lot about the process of making those tiles, too, in the traditional way.
Yeah, I learned a lot of interesting stuff about tiles. The main thing I remember that I thought was really interesting is that temples and shrines use a different type of tile than residential buildings. And the tiles for those religious places are like 2.5 times heavier than the other tiles.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And those tiles can't be used on residential buildings because they're not sturdy enough to hold that much weight.
Yeah.
The museum didn't have a lot of English. I don't think there was really any at all, but got to get the translation apps on your phone and you can take pictures and learn some things. That works just fine.
They also had that, I think, temporary exhibit of all the carved bamboo with the lights inside.
Yeah, that was cool.
They were kind of like bamboo jack-o'-lanterns.
That's exactly how I would describe it.
And they were really cool. Some of them were beautiful.
Yeah, pretty amazing art in there, really detailed. Then we kind of walked around Omihachiman. There's a temple there that was interesting. And we took the ropeway up to the top of the mountain there.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Hachimanyama ropeway. Get up to Hachiman Mountain, Mount Hachiman. And there are castle ruins up there. It was pretty rainy, but it was still cool to get some views from up there of Lake Biwa and the surrounding area.
It's kind of cool because the mountain is kind of right between the downtown area and the lake. So you climb up there, on one side is the lake, on the other side is the city.
Yeah.
So there's a really cool observation point up there that we found another cat at.
Yep.
And then there's a temple up there too.
It apparently has a garden in back that we wanted to see, but it was closed that day.
Yeah, right. That looked cool. So after we came down from the mountain, we passed the canal again and stopped to appreciate it one more time. And then we went on to Borderless Art Museum Noma, which is this small little cool art museum in a house in the city. They had a couple really bright paintings that I thought were really cool. I was just staring at one for a while. I really liked it.
Yeah. This place is kind of unusual. Like, I don't know how you would even describe the type of art that they have there. Pretty eccentric and eclectic.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. But it was a nice little, it took us like 30 minutes to walk through, but it was pretty cool.
Worth a stop if you're passing by.
And I think that was it. We just went back to Nagoya and had dinner.
Yep, went to Koko Curry again. I got this special limited time cashmere curry they had there. Not impressed by that one.
I learned you could add mushrooms to your curry, and that was a good choice.
That's one cool thing about Koko is that you can customize your curry and add whatever you want to it. So that was day 10 of our trip. Day 11, we got up early and took a train over to Yoro to visit Yoro Park and see the site of Reversible Destiny.
That's an interesting name.
Yes, it is. So this is an art park built by Shusaku Arakawa and Madeline Gins, who are two artists who came up with this idea for this place based on the concept that changes in bodily perception can lead to shifts in consciousness. So basically they built this, it's like a huge immersive art piece that you can explore where there are no straight lines. The whole place is built to be just very disorienting.
Yeah, nothing's flat.
Yeah.
Everything's a hill.
We talked about this in episode 44. We did an episode called 5 Unusual Places, and this is definitely an unusual place.
Yeah. They had these buildings that were maze-like inside, and there was furniture that was like going through walls all over the place. It was very odd on the senses, for sure.
I was so glad that we went, though. I just love weird places, and this is such a weird place.
So it was weird and cool and beautiful, but for like an hour to get there and an hour to get out of there, and we only spent an hour there exploring the whole thing, it's hard for me to recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to go here if you have limited time in Japan, but like if you have been to Japan multiple times and you want to just see something a little unusual, or if you're in the area, I mean, there really is no reason that you would be in this area.
Seems unlikely.
But I thought it was just super cool. Because
it's pretty cool.
What I want out of a trip to Japan is like novel experiences that I can't get anywhere else. And this place feels like it gives you that childlike wonder, where you can explore a place and you just don't know what's going to be around each corner and everything's a surprise. I just like that feeling. Like everything about this place is a surprise,
Yeah.
And it just looks really cool. I took a lot of pictures of this place. Even the bathrooms are crazy. I wasn't sure if the bathroom was going to be normal or also weird. Also weird.
It was also weird, yes.
Should we talk about the very nice old woman that we met by the train station, Paul?
Yeah. We were waiting for the train in Yoro, and we went into this little shop across the street, and the old shopkeeper came out and started talking to us. She starts telling us about her product. She tells us about this local legend of a boy who went and got water in his canteen and brought it home to his parents, and it turned into sake.
So the canteen that you're talking about is like those little, well, they're not little, they're really big, like hollow gourds. They're like these two big lump things on them, and they can hollow them out and store liquids in there. And that's almost like a symbol of Yoro. We actually noticed that the design on the seats on the train are shaped like those little gourds because that local folktale is so intertwined into the local culture.
Yeah, and the train was the Yoro line.
Right.
We even both bought little souvenirs because they bring you luck, or they bring you happiness. The father was so happy to drink the sake that it became a happy charm.
And they have all sorts of souvenirs around these little things. Like you can get foods too. They take really tiny little gourds and pickle them. And then the big ones, like I said, are hollow and you can fill them with liquid. I don't know. That's one of those really cool experiences you can have in Japan where you just come across something you didn't expect and you meet an interesting person, and
yeah,
it's just really fun.
That was fun.
So from Yoro, we headed over to Sekigahara. If you know anything about Japanese history, this place is probably familiar to you because it was the site of probably the most important battle in Japanese history. This is when Tokugawa Ieyasu gained power of the country and started the Edo period. And it was really amazing to see that place in person and be there and imagine like what the battlefield must have looked like. You know, looking over the places, imagining these armies situated in different places.
Yeah, it was a really cool place.
So we started at the Sekigahara Battlefield Memorial Museum.
And it was so cool, dude.
I just realized,
man.
I think I had said that the Toyota Museum was probably the best museum. This was up there too, right?
Yes.
This one might have been better.
It might have been. It was so cool. So the first thing you do is you come in and they bring you into this room with the big projection on the floor in the middle that kind of goes over the basics of the battle for you. Like, it started here, this general attacked that general, here's where the forces are. It kind of walks you through it. And then you go into this movie theater and you get to watch this dramatized version of the battle. But it was so cool. It was like being at an amusement park because they'd blow air in your face and the floor would rumble when the cavalry charges in. And it really made you like feel like you were at this battle.
It was extremely immersive. It was like one of those 4D experiences.
Yeah, it was extremely well done. It was so cool.
You have these guys charging at you with spears, and you're like, you start to, your heart rate increases.
Yeah.
It really brings you into the battle. And I learned a lot just about the different characters in this battle and who they were and what decisions they had to make and who took whose side and all of that. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Once you get through that video, there's another part of the museum where you can see a lot of artifacts. This is another place where you can lift up a sword and see what that feels like. They also had spears that you could lift.
They had replica guns.
Yeah, surprisingly heavy, some of those. We got a really fun picture of the two of us dressed as samurai. I was on the losing side for some reason. I guess I just liked the color of the...
Yeah, you went and grabbed that blue one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had just so many artifacts. This is another place where they had stuff tied to all the most famous people. Like they had artifacts that belonged to Tokugawa Ieyasu and Oda Nobunaga and all those guys.
Yeah, it was very cool. And then you can get to the, there's like an observation deck kind of thing at the top where you can look out over the battlefield, which is, of course, pretty developed now. Like, it's not just an open field anymore. But they have little sign plates that show you the different landmarks and like, okay, this army was over here and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You could be like, oh, that was the hill that this battle was fought on. And
yeah, just really one of those moments where you're just like, wow, like this is such an important place. And here I am looking down at it. It's just a cool feeling to me.
Yeah, great museum.
Pretty cool gift shop too.
Yep.
I also liked how I learned a lot about the different family crests. Like, there's so many different clans involved in this battle that it's almost easier to remember what their crest looks like than to remember the name of the family. And then at the gift shop, you can buy all sorts of stuff for whatever family crest you liked.
Yeah.
So then we started walking down the street from there. I guess we were kind of in part of the battlefield, huh? Just walking through this neighborhood to this really tiny, but also really, really awesome museum. They call it the Sekigahara Armor...
Sengoku Armor Museum.
Sengoku Armor Museum. So in the official memorial museum we were just talking about, all the armor they had was for, like, generals, like high up people in these armies. But in this museum, you actually get to see real armor that was worn by soldiers that were actually fighting.
Almost every single piece of armor had a dent or a scratch or a hole or a blood stain on it.
Yeah. Honestly, I was more excited to see this armor than the really fancy armor of the rich guys.
Yeah. I mean, most museums have Edo period, never used in battle showy armor sets.
Yeah.
This was the real stuff.
It was awesome to see these dented helmets and
bullet holes through chest plates and stuff.
Yeah.
And there were just a bunch of pieces of armor all jam-packed into this small museum.
Yeah, and for the two of us to get kind of a personal tour through this, it was 2,000 yen?
Yeah, we paid an extra 2,000 and got a private English tour through the place.
That seemed steep when they first said it, but I'm so glad we did that.
Yeah.
To be able to get more details about each piece of armor.
Yeah, he knew a lot. He told us some cool stuff.
He said he was descended from a samurai family, and he'd been collecting these pieces for a long time.
Yeah.
Really awesome. Like you won't spend a ton of time in there, but the stuff that you will see is
They had a good collection
amazing.
of weapons too.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so overall, Sekigahara vastly outpaced my expectations. That was so cool.
I feel like nobody talks about it, maybe because unless you know something about the history, it won't mean that much to you. But really, if you have any interest in the history, or if you've, been listening to the podcast long enough that you recognize that battle and you realize the significance of that, this place is awesome.
Yep.
It's just awesome.
It is.
Oh, this was the night when we got back to Nagoya. I looked up a really nice eel restaurant. It was very expensive, but also the best eel I've ever had.
Glad you get your money's worth.
After saying that, I should probably say the name of the place. So it's basically on top of Nagoya Station. It's called Maruya Honten, Maruya space Honten. Look that up on Google and you'll find it. Really excellent eel. And that was the end of day 11.
Day 12.
Yes, day 12 we made our way to Takayama. And we had a couple options to get there from Nagoya. We could have taken a bus, but we did the episode about sightseeing trains. And there's a sightseeing train line that can get you from Nagoya up to Takayama. So we took that. I got a bento to eat on the way there with Nagoya's local specialties. That was really fun. I always like doing that. Paul, what did you think of the sightseeing aspect of this train?
The views were pretty cool. We were slightly disappointed again that there were no fall colors.
Yeah.
But the train kind of follows along a river through a gorge in the mountains. So sometimes you're so close to the vegetation that you can't see anything, but usually at least one side of the train you could see out of, and it's pretty good views.
Yeah, the views were really nice, and they had, over the intercom, a voice telling you what to look at out the window. We're going to be passing by this thing. Take a look over here. So it's nice. It's cool to be able to get to where you're going, but also look at beautiful stuff on the way and have somebody tell you about it.
Yeah, it was a pleasant train ride.
Mm-hmm. So, Paul, how would you sum up Takayama? What is Takayama all about?
Takayama is a mountain town that's known to be old-fashioned. It's famous for its old preserved downtown area, and it's got the famous open-air architectural museum with the old buildings. So I feel like the old vibes is what it's known for.
Yeah, I think this is a really popular place for people that are visiting Japan, even for the first time, that want to get a taste of rural mountain town kind of vibes.
Yeah.
So this first day, when we first got there, midday, we walked over to a museum called the Hikaru Museum.
This place is wild.
I feel like it's kind of odd. It has so much different stuff. It's hard to come up with. It doesn't seem like there's a cohesive concept to this museum. You know what I mean?
The architecture's wild. It's got the weird pyramid thingy and then some other stuff going on.
It has a Mayan ziggurat sort of thing in the middle for some reason.
Yeah. And the entrance is underground and you start in the basement. Also, they have everything. It has refined art. It has history. It has archaeological stuff. It has paleontology. It's hard to describe what this place is.
They have giant dinosaurs there, but also Picassos.
Yeah. So very interesting. Just a ton of stuff to see. It's kind of all over the place.
They did have a really interesting exhibit about netsuke, which are these little carved objects that people used to use when they were wearing kimono. Like when you're wearing a kimono, they don't have pockets, so they would have little bags, and then the netsuke is like a little charm sort of thing attached to your bag.
It would act as kind of a hook to keep the bag from slipping all the way through your belt on your kimono.
Right.
This place, yeah, this was cool. They had amazing artistry on these things, and they were super creative in all the designs.
Yeah, they turned into an art form. Like they're much more than just functional. They're really incredible works of art, a lot of them.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys that did it came from Takayama.
They also had a no stage in here.
Yes, because why not? They had everything.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre, but pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
So after that, we walked over to a park called Takayama Sky Park because it's just a high point where you can get really nice views of the city and the mountains beyond.
Yep.
So we didn't mention, we mentioned it's a mountain town, but it's actually in the Japanese Alps. And you can see a lot of like really notable mountains from here. There's a lot of like popular hiking routes in the mountains that you can kind of see these peaks that you can hike to the top of if you want to.
Yeah, a bunch of the top 10 highest mountains in the country are in this range.
Yeah, so it was a really nice view from that park. Not much else to say about that. Then we checked into our hotel. This is where that night we were going to go get close to the old town part of town and go to that vegan place that was not open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we ended up splitting up for dinner, but
yeah,
it was good.
But I liked that area. There's like these little narrow alley. Like I said, Takayama's all about traditional stuff. This is a very traditional looking area with a lot of different little restaurants, like the really tiny ones.
It's crazy how touristy Takayama is.
Yeah,
in that old town area near the station, it's just tourists everywhere.
Yeah, we spent a morning there. We'll talk about that. But I was not expecting that level of busyness.
Right. Coming from a city as busy as Nagoya that didn't seem super touristy to a small town that was just covered with tourists was a little weird.
Yeah, agreed. But that was the end of day 12.
Well, don't forget, we checked into a hotel that had a rooftop onsen.
I almost forgot about the rooftop onsen.
So we definitely went and enjoyed that evening.
We enjoyed that onsen as much as we possibly could.
Yeah.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Be able to sit in an onsen on top of a building looking out at this beautiful mountain town.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was awesome.
That was cool.
And that was the end of day 12.
Yep.
Day 13, we got up and walked from our hotel to Hida no Sato Open Air Museum. So Takayama is one of a couple places in the Japanese Alps that are well known for these gasho-zukuri style houses. They're these really cool looking thatched roof A-frame farmhouses that people lived in these little mountain villages for hundreds of years. And the engineering behind these buildings is amazing. And it's really cool that you can get inside them and look at the roof and how it's put together and how the rooms are all set up and how you got the hearth that's burning to like put smoke up into the thatched roof to keep it from rotting and to keep insects out. And they're just really cool buildings.
Yeah. I was really excited for this place and it lived up to it. There are 20-some buildings there, so it gives you different examples. There's like the village leaders building that's bigger and has this big meeting area, but then there's the woodcutter's hut and the other person's building and so many different things. And you can go inside of most of them and look at all the tools that they used to do their jobs back then. That was a surprise to me. I didn't know they were going to have that much information about the daily lives of how people lived all those hundreds of years.
Yeah, you see a lot of artifacts that people used in these little farmhouses way back when to move huge quantities of wood or to weave clothing or I mean, anything that you would have needed to survive in these isolated little towns.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. I will say, I mean, this place was beautiful, and we did get to see some fall colors here. We were finally at the altitude where we started to see some color.
Yeah.
But I would say if you wanted to experience this type of thing, I would recommend that you go to Shirakawa instead. We did an episode about that place, and what I like about that place is that it's just more immersive, because in Takayama here, it's just this open-air architectural museum. That's the only place where you can experience this stuff. But in Shirakawa, you can actually stay in those houses overnight. Like, people are still living in those houses. And then they also have an open-air architectural museum across the river from that.
Yeah.
And Shirakawa is like, it feels more authentic in a way. I mean, it's also very touristy, but more authentic in the sense that it's a full village of these farmhouses.
Right. They're still living that way. Like, they never stopped living in those houses.
And it's kind of isolated. Like, it's not on the edge of a huge city like this one in Takayama. You feel more like isolated in the mountains.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a different vibe. But if you're in Takayama for other reasons, you have to go here. Like, I think this is one of the main draws of the city anyway.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So from there, we took, I think, a path less traveled, you could say.
For sure.
Because just looking around on Google Maps, I found this place called, on Google, it's called Squirrel Forest Hidayama Wildgrass Nature Garden. But when you go there, the sign just says Risu no Mori, which means squirrel forest, essentially. And we had to walk quite a ways to get here, and this is another part of the trip where I did not pay close enough attention to the elevation changes, because we kind of had to climb over a mountain to get there.
Yeah, it was a little work. It wasn't too crazy bad, though.
No, it wasn't.
But we went up
bad
quite
at
a bit.
It wasn't bad at all. But this place, I loved. Because this is another novel experience that you can't have a lot of other places. I don't think there's anywhere like this that exists in the U.S.
Not that I'm aware of.
Basically, there's this giant, I don't know, kind of fenced-in area.
Cage. It's a giant cage.
Sure, it's a cage, but it's giant. And they have tons of chipmunks and squirrels in there, and you get these little gloves, and you get food, and you go out there and you can feed them. And they'll jump on you and crawl around on you and, like, hide food in your jeans cuffs.
Yeah.
Squirreling
it away.
I ended up with so much birdseed in my cuffs at the end of the day.
Yeah, and they will jump on you and walk all over you whether you like it or not.
They'll launch themselves at you from the fences.
They're so light, though, too. You just feel this little pitter-patter kind of crawling all over you.
It is a strange feeling. Like, if you like little rodents and you've ever wanted to get really close to a squirrel, I mean, you can pet them. You can pet a squirrel.
I got bit by a squirrel.
You got nibbled on by a squirrel.
True. It wasn't a hard
It
bite.
didn't break the skin, did it?
No.
I don't know. I had a ton of fun here.
They left little dirty footprints all over my pants.
Paul, did you just not enjoy it? Tell me, like, how did you actually perceive that experience? Because you don't sound too excited about it.
I mean, I liked it, but I do have reservations about. I mean, it seemed like a pretty nice place, but like any place that like makes money off animals, I'm always wary about. Like, I have no idea if they're rescuing squirrels here or what they're doing, but I'm always just wary of places like that. But it seemed okay.
I understand that. But thinking about people like keeping mice and rats as pets, I mean, here they would have a lot more room to move around, at least, right?
Right. It was a big place. They had a place where they could get away from humans. I mean, it looked like a pretty good setup. But I mean, also like rodents crawling on me. Like, I think you enjoyed that more than I did.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking selfishly. I just wanted to hang out with cute little critters.
I enjoyed the cute little critters. I didn't love them like being on my head, but it was okay.
I enjoyed them being on your head. I got some great video of that.
I enjoyed them more being on you than on me.
So after we left that place, we walked over to Matsuri no Mori. This was a bit of a hike too, but not up a mountain or anything.
Well, everything from the squirrel place is, though, because it's the middle of nowhere.
True. And actually, when we got to the squirrel place, we had our bags with us, and they're like, oh, you got to leave your bags in the car. And we're like, we actually walked here. I get the impression that not many people do that because
I doubt it, yeah.
It doesn't make sense to do that. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't.
It was kind of a nice hike.
Yeah,
actually.
I wouldn't steer you away from doing exactly what we did. I had a really good time. And I thought it was cool, too, that we're really past the edges of the city of Takayama. Like, we're into rural. Like I said, we climbed a mountain.
Yeah,
that felt
we were
very,
out of the city.
We're out there.
Yeah.
And then hiking over to this Matsuri no Mori museum.
Which is also on the edge of the city.
But there we got more scenery of like little farms and smaller villages.
Yeah.
And it was just really pretty.
It's a nice part of town to walk through.
And peaceful. This is going back to my time on the Kumano Koto. Like this feels like one of those peaceful places where you just hear the crickets and the birds. And
yeah.
It was nice. So talk about the museum, Paul.
So the museum is actually dug into the side of a hill, and it's a huge dome inside that has some of the Matsuri floats they use on display. It also has the largest taiko drums in the world on display there, and it has the largest portable shrine in Japan. So it's got all of that, but not just that, it has animatronic shows every 10 minutes. Some of the floats have little animatronic characters on them that put on a show as music plays. And then there's a lion dance one that was pretty cool. And then there's one where there's animatronics that play the big taiko drums. And the way they boom through that cavern is like to your bones.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was really excited to see this, especially because we missed the Karakuri Museum in Inuyama. This was another opportunity to see that, and this museum vastly surpassed my expectations. It was very cool. It takes an hour to see every single one of the little animatronic shows, but it's totally worth it. And the time went by so fast.
Right, because the show's 5 minutes long, so then you only have 5 minutes before the next one starts to go look at a float or something.
Yeah, and the floats look amazing.
Yeah, Takayama has one of the most famous Matsuri in the whole country. And these floats are used in it.
It was awesome.
You could play one of the taiko drums too. At the entrance of the museum, they had one of the large ones you could play. That was pretty cool.
That's right. I was a little surprised at how dead this museum was. It was a slightly rainy day, and like I said, we're kind of at the edge of the city. I don't think a lot of international tourists seem to
Didn't seem like they were making it out there, no. But I feel like they do their business there on tour groups. I think sometimes 5 tour buses show up and there's 100 people in that museum all at once.
Yeah, we did see a couple buses in the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
I think there was a group that went in as we were leaving.
Okay. And right next to this museum is actually another squirrel forest kind of place. So I guess if you wanted to skip the one we went to, you could just go to this one. But it looked like this one was indoors.
Yeah, it looked like way smaller and stuff. I don't know.
And just for the chance to hike through the mountains a little bit, I wouldn't have changed a thing about this day. This was a really fun day.
Yeah, the hike through the mountains, it sounds like more far off than it was because the open air museum and the Matsuri museum are both on the edge of town and not super easy to get to and not close to each other. So getting from one of those straight to the other one without going through the squirrel place wouldn't have been that much quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This day just really worked out pretty perfectly, and it was really nice that we avoided any crowds.
Yep, that was great.
Because tomorrow, there are going to be some crowds.
Oh, yeah.
So we went back, hung out in the onsen again. The end, right?
Yep.
Okay, day 14. We're finally there. Another day in Takayama. So this was a Saturday, and this was the day that we spent checking out the old town part of town. For some reason, we chose to do that on a Saturday, which was less than ideal, I'd say. like we said, I think we were both just really surprised at how incredibly busy Takayama was.
I feel like this part of town's busy every day, though, too.
Probably. But Saturday is probably the worst time, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, so early in the morning, we went to Miyagawa Morning Market. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's a canal that goes through the city, and right next to it, there's a little street where they have this morning market. It's kind of a farmer's market sort of thing. There are also tons of little gift shops and food shops, places selling local specialties, things like that. Just a nice place to kind of take a stroll down and look at everything.
Yep. It's a good start to the day.
But
While we were waiting for the museums to open.
right. But even early, it was pretty busy.
Yep.
Like, these shops were pretty packed with people.
Yeah.
Then we headed a couple streets over from that, away from the canal.
Into the preserve district.
Yeah, it's very pretty. As we were saying, you got those wooden buildings. It's just a traditional part of town. That's what people are looking for, that rural, traditional feel. And you definitely get that, but it's also packed with tourists most of the time.
Yeah.
So one place that we visited, this is probably the highlight of the day for me, I think, the Takayama Showa-kan Museum.
Yeah, I'm with you there. This place is so cool.
So the Showa period was between 1926 and 1988, I believe. Kind of spans the whole middle half of the 1900s. And so this museum, you walk in there and it's just made to look like a street from, I don't know, the 1950s or something. I mean, they have different areas that have all sorts of different artifacts. It feels weird to call them artifacts. It doesn't feel like that long ago,
well,
relatively, but
they are.
I mean, they had Nintendos and stuff in there. It's hard to call stuff from my childhood artifacts.
True. That's what I was thinking too. Like, oh, things from my childhood are retro now. You know, like, great.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you walk down this street and they have all the old signs, and then each little kind of storefront is a different thing. There's one where they have like hundreds of old cameras lying all over the place. There's one that looks like what a doctor's office would have looked like in the 50s. There's an old phone booth. There's an old truck. It's just really cool.
They had rooms that looked like homes, just like the way that people were living back then. They're playing music, like old music. There was a living room where they're playing like old cartoons.
Oh, there was a movie theater too, where they had like a 1950s or 60s movie playing.
Yeah. Just a really cool vibe. It's really fun looking at all these little things. And in the room with the Nintendo, actually, I guess it was a Famicom, the Japanese version of the Nintendo, essentially. The original Nintendo Entertainment System.
You could play it, and they had a bunch of games.
They had a huge collection of games. You could have spent hours sitting there playing games. You could spend days.
Yeah.
Spend weeks.
They had a recreated old classroom. It was cool.
It was super cool. Just to clarify, this is all indoors. Like, it's a street. I mean, it's made to look like a street, but it's indoors.
Yes.
Paul, you want to talk about where we had lunch?
Yeah. We had lunch at Tofu Cuisine Noguchiya, which is a tofu restaurant. There were a whole bunch of different tofu sets you could order off the menu. Most of them could be made vegan if you let them know. So I got this 6 different type of tofu set, and it was really interesting. I had a couple unlike anything I'd ever had before.
Yeah. This was one of the few places that we ate together, and I was excited to try all these different types of tofu. I got yu tofu, which is basically like a tofu hot pot with yuba in there, the tofu skin. It was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. This is where it started raining pretty hard.
Yeah, it was pretty rainy, but still packed with people, bumping their umbrellas into each other and everything.
Yep.
Oh, the Funasaka Sake Brewery was really cool.
Yeah, this is where you can go, and for 100 yen, you get a little cup. And then you can buy tokens for 100 yen each. And you put a token in the machine, and you get a little taste of sake. So you can try a bunch of their different flavors before you buy.
There's so many different kinds to try, and I thought that was super fun. Like, being able to A/B so many different kinds and find the types of flavors that you like.
Some of them were so good.
And they have little QR codes you can scan to get more information about that specific one. So,
Yep.
like, if you've ever been curious about sake, but you don't know where to start, you don't know how to decide on a sake, you don't know how to find what flavors you like, this is a great place to do that. Like, just acquaint yourself with 20 different kinds of sake and pick your favorite.
This place was crazy busy, too.
It was really busy. But that was another highlight of the day for me. This and the Showa-kan, I think, were the two that I really had fun at.
I agree.
So at the Showa-kan Museum, we bought a combo ticket that also got us into the Retro Museum, which is like 10 minutes away in the same part of the city. The same kind of stuff, like a very similar vibe.
This one focuses more on like playable games, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We played a little air hockey there.
Yep. They got some Space Invaders. They've got pinball machines, all sorts of little things you can sit down at. Upstairs, they had a little area with video games, but they were all people parked at them. It was super crowded.
It was really, really crowded.
And it was like a lot of kids running around and stuff. So we didn't spend quite as much time there.
We got into the Showa-kan right when it opened. So that was nice that we got to see it before the crowds made their way there.
Yeah.
But even so, I just feel like the Showa-kan was a better place. This Retro Museum is just kind of a smaller, not quite as good version of it. That's the way I thought about it.
Pretty much.
They both also have little dagashiya, which are like little traditional candy shops where you can get tons of types of Japanese candy for really cheap. And I always like those places. You can just try a lot of different flavors without a big investment, you know? I bought a bunch of candy.
So I think it was early afternoon at this point, and we were wet and tired and cold, and we were thinking of like hiking up a mountain to some castle ruins, but we just called it a day, basically.
Yep, we went back to the hotel and enjoyed that onsen again while it was raining, which was really fun. I liked sitting, because it's an outdoor onsen, again, on top of a building. That was nice.
Yep.
I was
nice.
I was happy to spend the rest of the day just relaxing and doing that, getting some food.
Yep. Nice relaxing last night in Takayama, because we had a big day coming up after that.
Yep. Well, you'll have to hear about that day next time, because that is the end of week 2 of our trip. It was a good time, Paul. I miss it.
I know. It was so much fun. We did so much.
We really packed a lot in there. This episode is getting real long.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we went too crazy on describing what we did. We just did a lot of stuff that week.
Yeah. Yeah, everything went really well. Like, there weren't any parts of our plans that like fell apart or anything.
Yep.
It was solid. I would recommend any of those days that we did. Like, anything that sounds interesting to you, go check that stuff out.
Agreed.
Before we go, we should thank our Shogun level patrons: Wesley C., Nicholas McKibben, Kevin Harris, Brady K., Jack, Michael Morris, David Imani, Darwin Perrier, Ethan Teague, Yasmin, Jason, Katerina, and Ellery, Susan, Tori, Shaked Rosenthal, Tina Anderson, Alexa Gonzalez, Pamela Arola, Kevin Phillips, and Francie and Matthias. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for the support.
I guess I already said it. Sorry, Paul. I stole the part from you where you say what's coming up next time.
Oh, did you say it already?
I said you'll have to wait till next time to hear about the next day.
Yeah. Well, next episode is week 3 recap of our vacation.
The end of our vacation. How sad.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested in doing any of the things that we did, be sure to check out the show notes. I didn't mention that in the last episode, but I always make sure to put in the show notes like the list of these places that we went to, so you can see how they're spelled if you want to look them up and learn more, do some research for your trip perhaps. I also want to mention on our website, which is sightseeingjapanpodcast.com, there's an episode list there. You can click on that link to the episode list, and then there's a search bar, and you can search for whatever you're interested in about Japan, and it will find any episode where we talked about that topic. So like
That's cool.
I mentioned the Shirakawa-go episode. That might be kind of hard to spell, I guess, if you have never heard that before, but there's also the episode list. You can actually just read down the list and like look for it. Anyway, there are a bunch of ways to find various episodes about whatever it is you're interested in. Want to call that out. Anything else, Paul?
I think that's an episode.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.